A guy makes $75,000. His wife makes $55,000. Combined household income, $130,000. Top 20% of American earners. They bought the house everyone said they could afford, good school district, 3 beds, 2 baths, $420,000, 15% down because 20 felt impossible, even with both incomes. Monthly payment with insurance and property tax runs them $3,200. They've got 2 car payments because they both commute. His is $450 a month, hers is $380. Daycare for 2 kids is $2,400 monthly. Health insurance through his job still costs them $600 out of pocket. Student loans, another $550 combined. That's $7,580 in fixed costs before groceries, before gas, before they've turned on a single light or flushed a toilet. Their combined take-home after taxes is about $7,800 monthly. They have $220 of breathing room, 1 surprise medical bill, 1 car repair, 1 anything, and they're on a credit card. And here's what makes me laugh, in that dark way where you're not sure if you should laugh or throw something. They did everything right. College degrees, career progression, got married, combined finances, like the personal finance guru said, bought within their means, according to the mortgage calculator, and they're 1 transmission failure away from financial catastrophe. How did we get here? I'm going to explain exactly how the modern 2-income household became a trap instead of a wealth-building advantage, why your grandparents had more financial security on 1 income than you have on 2, and what's actually happening to that second paycheck that makes you feel like you're running in place. Because the math isn't what you think it is. Actually, before we go further, I built something for this exact situation. It's a retirement calculator, but it's not like those garbage-free tools that give you fantasy numbers. This one uses the actual formulas from Vanguard and BlackRock. It accounts for what I call the 4 horsemen: inflation, taxes, realistic yield, and the psychological trap of inconsistent contributions. Hundreds of people have used it. It's free. I'll ask for your email because I'm not storing your financial data on my server. I'll just send you the report. Play with the numbers, see what happens if you redirect that second income differently. Links in the description. Here's how to think about this. Imagine your household income is a bucket. In 1970, the typical middle-class family had 1 income bucket. It wasn't huge, but it was enough to cover the fixed costs of middle-class life: housing, food, healthcare, education. And here's the critical part. They had a second empty bucket sitting on the shelf. That was the potential second income. The backup plan. The emergency reserve they could tap if something went wrong. Now fast forward to today, we've taken both buckets off the shelf. We're using both. And somehow we have less water than our grandparents had with 1. First escalation. Let me take you back to 1970 because everyone talks about inflation and wage stagnation, but they miss the actual mechanism of what happened. In 1970, about 43% of women participated in the workforce. The typical family had 1 primary breadwinner, usually dad, making the median income of about $9,600, which is roughly $67,000 in today's money. Mom usually stayed home, and that single income could buy you a median price home at about $23,000, roughly $160,000 in today's dollars. So the house cost about 2.4 times the annual income. You could get a mortgage and spend about 25% of your income on housing. You'd have money left for everything else plus savings. But here's what nobody tells you. That stay-at-home parent wasn't just childcare. They were financial infrastructure. They cooked, which meant food costs were lower. They maintained the house, which meant repair costs were managed. They had time to shop for deals, to handle the 10,000 small tasks that cost money when you're exhausted. And critically, if the breadwinner lost their job or got sick, that second adult could enter the workforce. You had a backup plan built into your family structure. Now watch what happened. Through the 70s and 80s, more women entered the workforce. By 2023, female workforce participation hit about 57% overall, and much higher for married mothers specifically. Over 60% of married couples with kids have both parents working full-time. We activated the backup plan as standard operating procedure. And here's where it gets interesting. The median household income in 2023 was about $74,000. Adjusted for inflation, we're making more than families in 1970. But the median home price is now over $400,000. That's about 5.4 times the median household income. Housing costs relative to income have more than doubled. And that's just housing. Healthcare spending per household has increased by over 600% since 1970. Childcare, which barely existed as a major expense category in the one-income era, now costs the average family about $11,000 per year per child. In high cost of living areas, $20,000 to $30,000 per child annually. College tuition increased over 1,200% since 1980. Every single dollar of that second income got absorbed by cost increases in housing, healthcare, childcare, and education. The fixed costs of being middle class exploded to consume both incomes, and we burned our backup plan just to tread water. This is where most people make a critical thinking error. They assume, okay, but at least we have more money coming in. We have two incomes instead of one. We should have more security. But you don't. You have less. Because security isn't about income. It's about margin. It's about the gap between what you earn and what you must spend. And that gap has collapsed. Second, escalation. Let me show you the actual math of what happens to that second income, because I think when you see the numbers, you're gonna feel something click. Let's say partner one makes $70,000, partner two makes $50,000. Total household income, $120,000. Feels solid. Now let's trace what happens to that $50,000 second income. First, taxes. Because of progressive tax brackets, that second income gets taxed at your marginal rate, not your effective rate. The first $70,000 fills up the lower brackets. That additional $50,000 comes in at the top of your tax stack. Federal income tax, state income tax, payroll taxes. Depending on your state, the marginal hit on that second $50,000 is somewhere between 30 and 35%. Let's call it 32% to be conservative. That $50,000 becomes $34,000 in actual take home. Okay, still decent. Now add childcare. You have two kids. Average daycare cost in the United States is about $15,000 per year per child. Some of you just flinched because you're paying $25,000, but let's use the average. Two kids, $30,000 per year in daycare. Your $50,000 is now worth $4,000. We're not done. Two working parents means two commutes. Average American commute costs about $5,000 per year in gas, wear and tear, maintenance, depreciation. That's if you already own the car. If you need a second car specifically because both of you work, add the payment, insurance, registration, call it $8,000 for the second commuter. Your $50,000 is now negative $4,000. But wait, there's more. And this is the part people don't account for. Two exhausted working parents don't have time or energy for the things a stay-at-home parent handles. You're not cooking from scratch. You're ordering delivery. You're buying pre-made meals. You're eating out more. You're hiring the house cleaner because nobody has the energy to deep clean on Sunday. You're paying for lawn service. You're paying for convenience everywhere because time is the constraint and you're trading money for time. Studies show dual-income families spend significantly more on these convenience and exhaustion expenses. Call it $7,000 annually. Your $50,000 second income just netted you negative $11,000. Now you're thinking, okay, but that's extreme. That's worst case. Maybe. Let's be more generous. Let's say you only have one kid. Let's say childcare is only $12,000 because you found a deal or have family help. Let's say your commute costs are lower because you live closer to work. Let's say you're disciplined about cooking and you only add $3,000 in convenience spending instead of $7,000. Now that $50,000 income nets you maybe $7,000. $7,000 for a full year of full-time work. That's about $28 per workday. That's $350 an hour. Someone is spending 40 plus hours a week away from their family, missing bedtimes, grinding through traffic, and the household is clearing $3.50 an hour. You could make more driving for Uber on weekends. Third, escalation. But here's the real trap. And this is the part that keeps me up at night. Because even though that second income barely contributes anything after costs, you don't feel that way. You see the $120,000 on your tax return. You see the combined income when you apply for the mortgage. The bank looks at that $120,000 and says, yes, you can afford a $400,000 house. You can afford 2 car payments. You qualify. And you make spending decisions based on that gross number. You buy the house in the good school district because you can technically afford it with both incomes. You take on the car payments that 2 incomes can service. You enroll the kids in the activities and schools that 2 incomes can pay for. Your fixed costs expand to require both incomes. And now you're locked in. You can't go backwards. You can't have one partner quit or go part-time or take a sabbatical or stay home with a sick parent because your monthly nut requires both paychecks every single month, forever. You've built a life that demands 2 incomes to function, even though one of those incomes contributes almost nothing after costs. This is what Elizabeth Warren called the 2-income trap back in 2003, when she was a bankruptcy law professor at Harvard. Before she became a senator, before she became polarizing, she studied over 2,000 families who filed bankruptcy. And here's what she found. Families with 2 working parents were more likely to file for bankruptcy than single-income families, not less likely. More likely, you're working twice as hard, bringing in 2 paychecks, doing everything the system told you to do, and you're more likely to lose everything. That's not a personal failure. That's a systemic design. Here's why. The single-income family from 1970 had financial flexibility. If the breadwinner lost their job, the stay-at-home spouse could find work. Not ideal, but it was margin. It was a backup. The 2-income family today has already played that card. Both incomes are fully committed to monthly expenses. There's no reserve to activate. If either partner loses their job, gets sick, needs to care for an aging parent, has a child with special needs, hits any one of the 1,000 life events that happen to humans, the family can't maintain their fixed costs even temporarily, because those costs were sized for 2 incomes. A 2019 study from the Federal Reserve found that 40% of American adults couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing or selling something. 40%. Many of those people are in dual-income households making good money on paper. They're not broke because they don't earn enough. They're broke because their expenses expanded to consume every dollar they earn. And they're one transmission failure away from financial crisis. 4th escalation. And here's what really makes me laugh in that dark way. The expenses that ate the second income weren't frivolous. They weren't boats and jewelry and Vegas trips. They were housing, childcare, healthcare, education, the fixed costs of participating in the middle class. Let me explain the mechanism of how this happened, because it's so obvious in retrospect and nobody talks about it. It's a bidding war. In the single-income era, families competed for housing based on 1 income. When 2-income families became the norm, families suddenly had twice the purchasing power bidding on the same houses. What happened to prices? They got bid up, way up. If everyone has 2 incomes, 2 incomes becomes the baseline requirement. You need 2 incomes just to afford what 1 income used to buy. It's an arms race where everyone escalated and nobody won. Same thing happened with education. School districts are funded by property taxes, which means good schools exist in expensive neighborhoods. Parents want good schools for their kids. Families started using their dual incomes to outbid each other for houses in good school districts. This created what Warren calls the bidding war for educational opportunity. The price of admission to a good public school became a $400,000 mortgage instead of a $200,000 mortgage. You're not paying tuition, but you're paying the tuition equivalent in inflated housing costs. And once you're locked into that mortgage, you're locked into needing both incomes forever. The trap is closed. Let me make this concrete with a real scenario. Meet Sarah and Tom. Not real people, but I've seen this exact situation play out a dozen times, with people I know. Sarah's a marketing manager making $65,000. Tom's in IT making $73,000. Combined income $138,000. They live in a decent suburb of a mid-sized city. They bought their house in 2019 for $390,000. Put down 12%, which wiped out most of their savings. Monthly mortgage payment with insurance and property tax is $2,900. They have 2 kids, ages 3 and 5. Daycare runs them $2,200 per month. Sarah's commute costs about $400 a month in gas and parking. Tom's is $300. They both have car payments. Hers is $395, his is $420. Health insurance through Tom's employer costs them $500 per month out of pocket. They both have student loans totaling about $700 monthly. Added up, monthly fixed costs before food, utilities, or anything discretionary, $7,415. Their combined take-home after taxes is about $8,200. They have less than $800 of monthly margin. Last month, their water heater died, $1,800. They put it on a credit card at 19% interest because they didn't have it in cash. They're not irresponsible. They don't blow money on stupid stuff. They're trapped. Their fixed costs require both incomes running at full capacity with no interruptions. Ever. And here's the kicker. Sarah's been thinking about going part-time because she's missing too much of her kid's childhood and she's burned out. But they can't afford it. The house payment requires her income. The daycare, ironically, requires her income to pay for itself. They're stuck. And they make $138,000 a year. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, okay, but what am I supposed to do? I can't just quit my job. We need both incomes. And you're right. You do need both incomes to sustain the life you've built around both incomes. That's the trap. But here's the framework that changes everything. And I learned this watching people who actually build wealth over 10 plus years running a business, working with accountants and fiscal lawyers who see the patterns. You need to treat the second income like it's temporary, even if it isn't. Most families do the opposite. They treat both incomes as permanent and guaranteed. They build their fixed costs accordingly. House that requires 2 incomes, cars that require 2 incomes, lifestyle that requires 2 incomes, then they're stuck. The alternative is what I call the one income foundation. You structure your non-negotiable monthly expenses so they can be covered by one income alone, not comfortably, but survivably. The second income becomes entirely discretionary. Savings, investments, paying off debt, or yes, some lifestyle spending. But critically, you could survive without it. You'd have to cut back. Life wouldn't be as comfortable. But you wouldn't lose the house, you wouldn't go bankrupt, you'd have margin. Imagine this conversation. A couple makes $130,000 combined. Instead of buying a house that a bank says they can afford at $400,000, they buy at $275,000. Instead of 2 car payments, they have 1 or 0. They live in a neighborhood that's maybe slightly less prestigious. Schools that are good but not elite. They buy the house that one income, maybe $75,000, can afford. And they bank the difference. That second income, or most of it, goes straight to wealth building. Emergency fund first, then maxing out retirement accounts, then taxable brokerage. Every dollar they invest is buying back optionality. It's buying the freedom to have one partner step back if needed, to take a career risk, to handle a health crisis, to be present for aging parents. Here's what this looks like in numbers. If you redirect $30,000 per year from that second income into investments, assuming a 7% real return after inflation, in 10 years, you have over $400,000. In 15 years, over $750,000. That money is generating its own income through dividends and growth. You've built actual wealth. You have genuine security. You're not 2 job losses away from bankruptcy anymore. This requires short-term sacrifice. It means driving past the nice houses you could technically qualify for. It means telling friends you're not upgrading even though you got a raise. It means resisting social pressure to spend like a dual income family because you're building like you only have one. But here's the thing. Within 5 to 10 years of this approach, something clicks. The investments you made with that second income start compounding. You actually have what you thought two incomes would give you: real financial security, options, flexibility, freedom. Quick aside. You know what's funny? People say, "But Tom, we can't live in a smaller house. The schools are worse." Okay, let's talk about that. The difference in test scores between a school in the 75th percentile and the 95th percentile is marginal compared to the difference parental involvement makes. And you know what kills parental involvement? Having both parents exhausted and stressed about money all the time because they're house poor. Your kids don't need the best school district. They need parents who aren't financially drowning. End of aside. Another aside. I love when people justify the bigger house with, "But it's an investment." Oh, is it? Because you're paying $70,000 more for it, which means roughly $4,000 more per year in mortgage interest, property tax, insurance, and maintenance. That's $4,000 per year. You're not investing in actual assets that pay you dividends. Over 20 years, that's $80,000 in opportunity cost, not even counting the compounding you missed. Your house isn't an investment. It's a liability pretending to be an asset. End of second aside. Here's what I want you to understand. The two-income trap isn't about income. It's about flexibility. It's about margin. Our grandparents had something we traded away: the ability to absorb a shock, to pivot, to have one partner step back without the whole structure collapsing. We traded that for bigger houses, nicer cars, the appearance of prosperity. But appearances aren't wealth, cash flow isn't security, and two incomes aren't better than one if both are already spent before they hit your account. I've spent 10 plus years watching this play out with hundreds of people I know personally and through my business. The ones who build real wealth aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who kept their fixed costs low relative to one income, who refused to let lifestyle expand to consume every dollar, who kept their backup plan in reserve instead of deploying it just to keep up. You can earn your way out of a lot of problems, but you can't earn your way out of a trap you don't know you're in. So here are your 3 practical takeaways. First, calculate your household's true one-income survivability number. Not comfortable, survivable. What's the minimum monthly income you need to cover mortgage, minimum food, utilities, insurance, and debt payments? If that number requires both incomes, you're in the trap. Your job is to get that number below one income as fast as possible. Downsize the house if needed. Sell a car, move, whatever it takes. Second, redirect the entire second income, or as much as possible, to building a gap between your lifestyle and your income. Emergency fund first, 6 months of expenses minimum. Then retirement accounts. Then taxable investments. Every dollar you invest is buying back your freedom. Third, when you make big financial decisions, housing especially, assume you'll only have one income. Stress test every purchase against that scenario. If you can't afford it on one income, you can't actually afford it, period. You're just gambling that nothing will ever go wrong. And look, I get it. This is hard. It means sacrifice. It means living below your apparent means. It means watching friends buy bigger houses and nicer cars and taking fancier vacations and feeling like you're falling behind. But here's what I know after watching this for over a decade. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. The people who got rich slowly by keeping their costs low and investing the difference are the ones who actually have options now. The people who spent every dollar to look successful are the ones trapped in jobs they hate because they can't afford to quit. You're not going to hear this from financial advisors who get paid to manage your money, or from banks who make more when you borrow more, or from real estate agents who get a percentage of your home price. But you're hearing it from me. The two-income trap is real. It's not a conspiracy. It's just incentives playing out at scale. And the only way out is to refuse to play. Build your life on one income. Invest the second. Buy back your freedom. That's it.